My name is Joe Cunningham. I am here to give a presentation to evaluate a colony in my apiary here for the Cornell Master Beekeeping Program. First off, talk about my apiary just for a moment before we open up the hive. I'm located in Central Texas, about an hour south of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex in Hill County. Hill County is mostly a rural county. A lot of agriculture and farming and ranching as well. My immediate area that's I think beneficial to my apiary is in about a 3-mile area radius where bees would be foraging, primarily is ranching and less agricultural land. So I think probably my bees are probably less exposed to pesticides and some chemicals in a ranching area more so than in the plowed ground area where agricultural crops are being sprayed. And so another big advantage to my apiary here is this land adjoins about 13,000 acres of federal lands. There's a lake there that provides is a source of water for most of the Hill County area, plus all the surrounding area around that. There's very little human activity, so a lot of native plants, good native forage for my bees. Also for my apiary, I have a small orchard here and have over 100 acres of property here that is pasture, but also full of native plants. My honey source is primarily multifloral honey from the Texas wildflowers. Probably a couple of the disadvantages that I have here in my apiary is I'm looking kind of to the northwest, but to the north I don't have much of a windbreak there. I am planting trees and shrubs, as you can see in the picture there, but that will be 2 to 3 years down the line for the benefit that I also am aligning my apiary. I'm trying to spread it out somewhat to minimize drifting. Probably the Texas summers being so brutal in heat, I'm trying to line some of them in shade. This row out here, planting some trees to provide shade, but I don't really have shade for those yet at this time. So that being said, looking at the outside of the hive, it's overcast today. It's about 70 degrees early afternoon here. I think being overcast, it seems like looking at some of the other colonies, there's not as much activity as the last couple of days when the sun was shining fully. But I see some bees that were coming out. Don't see much activity right at this time. We'll see if they're going to keep coming out. I saw some bringing out pollen, but we'll keep watching for a moment while I talk. I do see, and I'll point out, there are some dead bees on the ground in the front. I can't tell the age of their death. You know, my concern seeing those dead bees there at this time of the year is what could be causing that. Again, I mentioned perhaps limited pesticide exposure, but there is some of that in this area. I hope that it's not disease, so that's something that we'll kind of look for when we open up the hive. What I would expect going in here now, this is early May. We're seeing the dandelions blooming, which usually is a sign of the beginnings of the nectar flow. I've noticed we have a lot of mesquite trees in the area, and mesquite is the #1 pollen source and nectar source for bees in the state of Texas. And I'm just starting to see a lot of the mesquite trees just starting to bloom. So we're just about to start a heavy flow. So this time of the year being on the upswing, I would expect increasing numbers of bees. I would hope to see at least 5 to 6 frames of brood. I would hope to see storage of nutrients. So I'm concerned about numbers of bees, population. I'm concerned about nutrition of bees, if they're putting in some pollen and nectar for the nectar flow that's just about to start. And seeing the dead bees on the ground, we want to look for and kind of evaluate if there's any health issues, you know, exposure to pesticides, some diseases. So we will do that as we open up the hive. I've got my smoker going, so let me get my veil on over my glasses. I do notice at the front there are some coming in now, and if we keep watching, while I was talking, I saw some coming in with nectar, kind of a yellow-orange nectar, and I think that is dandelion. Again, I think been an overcast day, and all of my colonies, I've kind of looked the last few minutes, not near the activity the last couple of days. But just putting my hand up here and seeing, there will be guard bees in there. One of my IPMs, one of my pest issues, and I think Central Texas has a large problem with small hive beetles. And anecdotally, I feel that this beetle blocker is beneficial to keeping small hive beetles at least to a minimum of accessing getting into the hive. Okay, we'll keep watching for bees that's bringing in pollen as we evaluate. So I will do a little puff of smoke at the front. Don't really have to do much. There's some bees coming in. Perhaps because I was standing there, I might have been in their flight path. I'm not really seeing any pollen on any of those right now. So we'll look inside and see what we see. All right, we'll break this seal. Do a little puff of smoke in there. In anticipation of the nectar flow, a little over a week ago, I put on a honey super. So we will, look at that. Even though I have a queen excluder, I do like to look and make sure that the queen has not gotten up through that, up in that top board. Don't want to lose her. And we have a lot of activity up here at the top, so that's a good sign. Do a little puff of smoke. Okay. Good numbers of bees up here on the inner cover. They are drawing out a little bit of burr comb. There's a small hive beetle. I like to kill those when I see them. I don't see any others. We will lean that up. Looking in the honey super, I see 1, 2, 3 frames of bees. This honey super, most of the frames on this are new, so they're going to have to work extra hard to draw those out. So we'll look at 1 or 2 of those and see what we see here. There are bees on it, and you can tell perhaps where they're really drawing that out. These are all worker bees. These are females, and they're the ones just bringing in the nectar and pollen. So I'm glad to see that they're drawing that out. The hive tool, I try to go horizontally first to break any propolis seal and come up nice and easy. You can see where the girls have drawn this out well, and they're starting to fill that with nectar. The shiny liquid is nectar, which will hopefully in another month or so, they'll dry it out. It'll be honey and it'll be capped. And they're drawing this frame out nicely as well, so that's really good. Glad to see that. Again, with putting frames in that are not already drawn out, ends up being a lot of work to draw frames out and do the foraging as well. There's another frame that they've drawn out really well, and busy working on that. Looking at all of these foragers bringing nectar in. They look focused, they look healthy. We'll put this away, move this, and queen excluder, and we will look inside and see what we see in the brood area. Okay, we have a lot of bees up here on this queen excluder, a lot of activity. Let's see, line that up right there. A lot of bees on an excluder. This is part of a small hive beetle trap that, again, that's another IPM for small hive beetles that we do to minimize their impact on this colony. A little over a week ago, I am doing a 14-day treatment of Farmic Pro. Texas is pretty tough trying to use Farmic Pro because of the temperature issues, but I found at least a 10-day window and hoping in the full 14 days. And coming Tuesday will be the 14-day period on Farmic Pro. And Farmic Pro is organic acid treatment for varroa mite. We'll talk about varroa and that treatment for that in a bit. One of the things I try to do as far as IPM from a sanitation standpoint is, you can see these two frames are marked 5. I haven't marked these two as 6 yet, but I try to rotate out 2 frames every year. You can tell I've got an older one there. I have some plastic frames, but if I can rotate out 2 frames every year, then that will be a way to get perhaps some pesticide exposure out of the hive. We'll take out 1 frame, use my J-hook, come up slowly. Not sure where the queen would be, but you can tell they're drawing this one out, which is wonderful. This is what I would call number 1, but I see bees in on number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I've got bees all the way across. So that's a wonderful sign when you start talking about numbers. So our population is good. They're growing, so they are getting ready for this nectar flow as it's starting. All right, you can tell that frame, they're drawing that out. I'm looking, I wouldn't expect the queen to be over here, but we're going to do a quick look. I don't see any evidence of any twitching, abnormal movements of any bees. I think these must be the architecture majors as they're drawing and building out comb, and they're drawing comb on that side too, so that's a wonderful sign to see as well. We will carefully slide that in there. For a overcast day and what little smoke I used, I think the bees are being very calm, which is always a good sign. This frame has been drawn out, and interestingly enough, you can see this older comb been walked on quite a bit, and this newer comb being drawn out, but they're working it good. I'm looking through here. I don't see any drones. We'll see some drones in a few minutes, but I'm glad to see that they're drawing all of this out. Same on this frame here. We'll put that back and we'll move and see what we see from a brood standpoint. Okay. Another frame, and you can see some shiny nectar in there, which is a good sign that they're bringing in nectar and the resources. I'm not seeing any other signs of pests like those small hive beetles. No evidence of any wax moths, which can be problematic here as well. They're drawing this frame out. And actually we got some capped brood right there, which is good to see. We'll kind of see what that might be. Let me hold this up and then we'll let our photographer see it here in a moment. Oh, there's a small hive beetle on my hand, so there's number 2, and we killed that one, so that's a good thing. That's a yellow frame, and that is hard to see eggs, but for some brood there, then that means the queen has been here. They're putting nectar in this one right here. Okay, let's look. We want to find some brood, look at brood in our time we have today. Again, the bees look healthy. I'm kind of watching and seeing if perhaps I could even see a varroa mite on them. I'm looking for twitching behavior. I'm looking for any abnormal wing shape, which could be evidence of pesticide exposure or disease. All right, we've got right here a queen cup. We'll look and see if anything is in there. I don't see any egg in there or any royal jelly. That's one of the cells for a potential queen, and they practice that throughout the year. I'm not seeing any swarm cells, which tells me they're not ready to do any swarming. With the numbers they've got, that would be a legitimate concern. This is oddly drawn out with comb like this, but they are drawing it out. And again, we have high population of bees. Okay. If we had any queen issues, we probably would see some other cells, like supersedure cells, toward the middle of the frame, or we'd see swarm cells. If we were thinking they were swarming, they would be more toward the bottom. This one's a little heavier. Here's some capped brood. That's baby bees, and there is some very young larvae next to that. But also they're putting nectar in there as well, so that's a little bit of a concern. This many bees, it's always difficult to see the queen. I'm doing a quick perusal. Here's some more brood here. Capped brood. I see some very young larvae in here. Like 2 to 3 day old larva. There's one chewing out that's going to be born today. All right, let's look flip side to see if perhaps, there's a better brood pattern here. A lot of larvae. Yeah, a lot of very young larvae here. With it being overcast, it's really difficult to see the eggs. So we have a brood pattern, and typically around the brood pattern, I don't see much pollen here. You'd have the pollen close, and then you'd have the nectar or honey, since those are food sources. The nectar is providing the carbohydrates, and the pollen is providing the protein and lipids, which would include some minerals and vitamins. We're going to look at one or two more frames just to see if perhaps we see some more resources and or the queen. We come up nice and slow, straight up. We don't want to roll the bees at all. Here is some pollen in here, stored along with some nectar. There's a little bit of capped brood on here. And here we have a drone. Eyes are touching, a bigger, wider body, a little stubbier in appearance. I'm not seeing near the amount of drones I would expect to see. If we saw the queen, she'd have an elongated abdomen, which would be full of sperm and eggs. We'd commented on the outside that we didn't see at the time. I'd seen several bees bringing in pollen, but I'm not seeing any bees marching around in here with pollen on. We're going to look at one more frame before we close it up and talk about some IPM practices for varroa. Nice and easy, straight up. Up there's the queen right here. See that elongated body? Her abdomen is much longer, head, thorax, and abdomen. And she's walking around. I sure would love to see her laying some eggs, but she's got plenty of room on this to lay eggs, so we don't have a space issue. We're not honey bound, but we're going to carefully close this up. Nice and easy. Don't want to roll the queen or hurt her at all. Okay, so concerning our 3 points of focus of numbers, we've got good numbers. I'm not seeing as much brood as I would like, but we're still in a growth mode, as it were, for this time of the year. Secondly, nutrition. I saw quite a bit of pollen and nectar. Not as much pollen as I would anticipate. But quite a bit of nectar. So our nectar flow is starting. So that looks good. No evidence of pest, other than my concern over dead bees to the outside. So what are my goals for the next time I view this? I really would like to see more resources. As in pollen. And I'm glad to see that they're bringing in nectar and starting their honey effort up in the super. So we'll check for nutrition on our next checkup on these girls. From an IPM standpoint, I do not have a screen bottom board. This is a solid bottom board. About half of my colony does have screen bottom board, and I'm transitioning to that. This one at this time just does not have one. I also use green drone comb every other year or so. Probably next month will be when I try to put in the green drone comb, which will limit varroa. When I do move toward the chemicals, well, one more thing on the kind of cultural aspect is this queen is a Saskatraz queen, and Saskatraz shows a lot of varroa resistance, so I'm trying to improve those genetics in my apiary as well. When I move to the chemicals, this is Formic Pro and organic acid. I'm using it right now. About 2 months ago, I used, 3 months ago, I guess, go to the oxalic acid vapor. Probably after I harvest honey, we'll do our testing and see where we are at that point in time, which I think the threshold is approximately 3 mites per 100. And at that time, we'll see that status in either oxalic acid or maybe the Viroxan strips at that point in time. That being said, I thank you for your time.